This is the Aorus 2070 Gaming Box eGPU with an RTX 2070. It is probably the smallest and most portable eGPU there is on the market right now, but unfortunately you cannot change the eGPU, the GPU in it in the future. If you want to switch it, upgrade it, you can't do it, so that's a trade-off. On the back here, you got a charging port, you got a fast charging port, you got 3 USB-A's, you got a display port, HDMI, display port, USB Type-C, and most importantly, Thunderbolt 3. If you don't have a Thunderbolt 3 outlet on your laptop, you cannot use an eGPU. In this gaming box, this eGPU can also charge my laptop. Not all eGPUs can do that. So when you buy this eGPU, it comes in a box like this. And in this box, they give you a half-meter long TB3 cable, Thunderbolt 3. It can transfer 40 gigabytes of data per second, I believe, and that's the amount you want. You don't want one that can only transfer 20 gigabytes because that would bottleneck your whole setup. They also give you a driver CD with some NVIDIA stuff, but it's useless because my laptop can't read CDs. It also has this really neat bag that you can put your gaming box in. It also has some pockets, I presume, to put your Thunderbolt 3 cable, maybe. So once you put your gaming box in it, you can carry it around pretty easily. You also have this strap that you can put on, so you can, put it on your back. So that's pretty neat. I don't think I'll use it, but it's nice to have the option. And this is the laptop that I'm using with my eGPU. It's the HP Spectre X330 13, late 2019 or early 2020 version with 1 terabyte SSD, an i7 1065 G7 CPU, and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I chose one with a pretty strong CPU so it doesn't bottleneck my GPU. And most importantly, of course, it has 2 Thunderbolt 3 outlets. Without them, you cannot connect to a eGPU. So once you plug in the power cord into the eGPU and have the Thunderbolt 3 cable connected between the 2 devices, you can see that the RGB lighting has been lit up. And if I go into my device manager here in my Windows, well, it's in Chinese because I bought it in China, by the way, you can see under displays that there is NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070. When you first connect the 2 devices, that will not be the case because you will need to download an NVIDIA driver for the GPU to be properly recognized by your computer. And basically, all you need to do is first wait. So when you plug in, the computer is automatically gonna download stuff. So you wait, and then you wanna check on Windows Update, and then you might need to reboot your computer a few times. And then after all that, you need to download an NVIDIA driver. So what I did was I downloaded an NVIDIA GeForce Experience, which helped me download all the drivers. So that was really helpful. So once you do all that, you can go into Device Manager to see if your graphics card is working properly. Also here, if you see this little thing over here, RTX 2070, if you see this here, then it's working. So now I have Overwatch running. I'm running at 1080p ultra graphics settings, and we're reaching a very steady 60 frames per second. You should also be able to play most of the current AAA titles with mid to high graphics settings at 60 frames per second with no problem at all. Now, something to keep in mind is that, as I said before, if you connect your eGPU to your laptop without an external monitor, there's going to be a lot of performance dip because the cable here can get pretty cramped. So it's going to perform at around a GTX 1060 level. However, if you do connect your eGPU to a monitor, it performs slightly better than a GTX 1070. Now, currently, I think the sweet spot is a 1440p or 2K external monitor that you want to connect to your eGPU for the most ideal setup. That's because, again, because the cord can get easily crammed, the eGPU is actually not able to create a lot of frames. So if you play with a really low resolution, the game still cannot produce that much frames. So instead, it will be much better for you to have a monitor with higher resolutions. Now I'm running Sekiro, and again, we're running at 1080p with the highest graphics settings with motion blur off. And we can maintain a pretty steady 60 FPS. At some of the most graphical intense locations, the FPS could dip into the 50s, but mostly it's still pretty stable. Now we're running Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I'm at the entrance of Celiana, running at 1080p at I think the highest graphical settings apart from volume and rendering quality, which are turned off. As you can see, we're running at an average of 53 frames per second. So just for comparison, I have connected an external monitor to the eGPU. We're at the same location in Celiana, and as you can see, we can reach a very steady 60 frames per second with VSync on. Now, I do need to point out that, as you can see, the monitor has not filled up the game. It's not 16 by 9. That's because this monitor is 1680 by 1050 resolution, so it's slightly lower than the average 1080p monitor, which is, as you may know, 1920 by 1080. So I do want to know how the eGPU would fare with an actual 1080p monitor or a 1440p monitor. I am planning on getting a 2K monitor very soon, so I'll see how that changes the frames. Now, there is something I've noticed since obtaining this eGPU a week ago, which is that it has actually crashed a few times while I was using it normally. But fortunately, it has never crashed while I was gaming, but sometimes when I was just watching YouTube, for example, the screen would go black and the speakers would be making very loud buzzing noises. So what I had to do was unplug the eGPU, then my laptop would go back to normal functioning normally, but then when I replug my eGPU, it would not be recognized by my laptop. And I think I found out the reason, which is that my drivers are not up to date. So I just updated my drivers, NVIDIA and Windows ones, on GeForce Experience or on Windows Update. And once I update and reboot my computer, then the eGPU can be recognized perfectly again. So I think you do need to be extra aware on your drivers being updated. You probably want softwares like GeForce Experience. But I think as long as you manage your updates well, you shouldn't meet too many problems with this eGPU setup, but you do want to keep this in mind. The last thing that I want to talk about is who this setup is for. First of all, I bought both devices in China, the Spectre for around 9,800 yuan and the gaming box for around 4,800 yuan. When I add them up and turn it into USD, I get roughly $20.54. You can probably get a cheaper mobile gaming experience with a gaming laptop, but the reason that I chose this setup over a gaming laptop is that, unfortunately, gaming laptops are still too bulky and not portable enough for me to, for example, take to class, to take notes, and so on. Because I'm a student and I travel around a lot, I want something that's really, really portable. And of course, I want something that has a battery that lasts long. The reason that I chose the Aorus Gaming Box to other eGPUs is that it is the smallest and most portable one there is on the market. Most of the other eGPUs, essentially what you get is an empty box that you can put desktop GPUs in, making them future-proof because you can upgrade your eGPU with better graphics card. However, I don't see how that would be beneficial for me because if I still move around in the future where I need a more powerful device, I probably just buy a gaming laptop, which at that point I think would be really, really portable and light. And if I settle down and become more sustainable myself, I probably just get a desktop setup, which is much more stable, doesn't crash as often, and it's much stronger than, you know, this kind of setup.